random. Can I say?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Yeah, fine. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe
Okay,
not
alright.
abilities. Just
fine.
fine. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll blur all that out. Don't worry.
Yeah. So like,
What's your profanity? Right, I'm sorry.
Hey, and welcome to the third episode of Making the Right Play. I'm your host Ishi with my co-host.
Manit.
Today we have another special guest. We have Isuru on the show today. How's it going, Isuru?
it's going good. How about you guys?
Not too bad.
Chilled out. I think, yeah, I'll just like kind of introduce Isuru to like, the rest of the audience, and kind of establish why we really wanted him to in the first couple of episodes. So Isuru has been like my best friend for the longest time. At least it feels like a long time, and I think his journey has always kind of inspired me from the beginning. I think the first few conversations I had about applying to university and kind of diversify my options were with him, and he's inspired a lot of people, including myself, with his journey. He applied twice, and the decisions he made and the maturity he put into his decisions. I think that would definitely inspire a lot of students coming into like who are interested in like applying to the same kind of caliber of universities. And like the title says, he's on a 100% like full ride scholarship at Dartmouth himself, which is Ivy League school. And I think there are a lot of mental nuggets you can get from like an individual like him. I'm very extremely proud to kind of have him on the show for sure. And I guess just to kind of like start off the entire thing, Isru, could you just like fill us in on how you've been doing and like how life has been in Sri Lanka? I know it's a change of scene for you, but like how has college been thus far, and are you enjoying the experience? Like just fill us in. That'll be cool.
Yeah. This fall semester was actually pretty fun for me, especially because I came back home. I took two CS classes, and these were like relatively advanced CS classes.
Yeah.
And I just really enjoyed the material that I was learning. So I was doing discrete maths for computer science
Oh
and
yeah,
software
yeah.
and implementation in C. So yeah, I really enjoyed this term, and I've been enjoying winter break as well. So,
So yeah, I think it's cool, right? Like I think you started with like, correct me if I'm wrong though. Like started with the government, then you went to QSS, and then you shifted back to like this is right now you're doing QSS and CS together, if I'm not mistaken. Like is
yeah,
it?
yeah. Okay,
And
so
yeah, good.
okay, so I initially started with econ, and the reason
Okay,
why I
yeah,
started with econ was because Dartmouth has a strong history for like sending kids to big finance and consulting firms.
yeah,
So that's what I wanted to do as well. But literally the first term that I
yeah,
took econ class, I absolutely hated it. So I
yeah, yeah,
switched to government, and then there was another transition somewhere down the line to art history, and
yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry,
then
I forgot that. Yeah.
yeah, and then it became
I did not know you
QSS,
were art
which
history
is
for a while.
basically sorry.
No, I just did not know that you were art history for a while. That's interesting.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a weird phase, honestly. But yeah, so then I switched to QSS, which is basically data science. Then I
Yeah.
switched to CS, and then I started missing QSS again. So I changed. So at Dartmouth you can modify your major, so you can take
Yeah.
certain elements of a different major, and like have like a mix of both. So I am currently pursuing a CS modified with QSS major. So yeah, that's currently
And
the plan.
QSS is quantitative social sciences, right?
Social
If I'm
science,
right.
yes, yeah.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. So get I think getting to Dartmouth was probably like the most challenging journey that you had like in your high school, like kind of like
Mhm.
reign, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Like how I know that things didn't go like all well and great for you in your first try to university, right? And I think a lot of people kind of like either like they either get really disheartened with like their results from the first application cycle, or they just like take the best safety option that they have as soon as they kind of like get what they basically go to whatever university they get, and you decide to
Right.
take a gap year and still strive for the same universities that might have rejected you in like the first round.
Mhm.
So could you first like run like kind of like run us through how you were feeling like in that first cycle, because like it could be very like disheartening, right? And I remember speaking to you too about it, but like for the audience, I think that'll be really cool.
Yeah. So the first time I applied, I probably applied to like 17 unis my
Okay.
first year, and I
Okay.
only got into one. And
Okay.
that, so I got into Ithaca College on a 50% scholarship.
Okay.
But that was still not enough for me
For
to
you.
pursue higher education. So the challenge was securing higher education. It wasn't necessarily like getting into, like
A
a
big
dream university.
school or like, yeah.
Yeah, it was that. And the first time I got rejected, I thought it was pretty much the end, because I
Yeah.
had sacrifice, like, so when you like apply to the US, you have to study for your SATs, your
Yeah.
SAT 2, stuff like that, right? So like I did not focus on any of my schoolwork, my high school work, but I was focused on uni applications and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
it felt like I was going nowhere, because my A levels at that point weren't looking that great,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
then I got rejected by so many unis, so it was pretty disheartening. But um, I realized that I also had my A level exams coming in 2 months at the time, and I thought, yeah, I took this L, but like I have to make use of the opportunities that are to come. So I studied as hard as I could for my A levels, and
Yeah.
I got 3 A stars, Mr. World Prize by a mark.
Yeah.
Um, and I think,
Big brain energy. Okay. Go on.
and I, and I think that's what like really like changed my mindset, because I mean, I did study pretty hard, but I had no like expectation of getting.
Expectation.
So
Yeah.
I was like, damn, like I'm actually capable of shit like this. So yeah, like it was pretty, I think that was it. And I did my set, my, the normal was set one the first
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Sorry, the second time. And I improved on my score. um, and then it was just like really like reflecting on my personality, so that I could like um, create a pretty good personal statement. So
Yeah.
that was the second year, but we can talk about that later if you want.
I think
Sure.
I also
Sure.
want to like state that you were talking about SATs and stuff like that. I feel like that's a very
Yeah,
like you did well on your A levels, right? And then I don't know about your SAT performance was like, but I feel like
yeah,
it's very
yeah,
possible for the like to get to be downscored on the SAT and still be
yeah,
a very high performing academic.
yeah.
I think
That's true.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
very
and just
consistent
like,
trend you can see. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, and also one more thing, I feel like when you're applying from Sri Lanka, okay, you don't have the same resources that
Yeah. Yeah.
kids from North America have, right? So
Yeah.
you can still be a really good student, but like I know a lot of Sri Lankan students struggle a lot in the English component of the SAT. We do really well on the math component, but we don't do that well on the English component, right? So like, and that's because our kids are under resourced, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying.
Okay. I think another thing for you, and I think this is something like a lot of people struggle with, like is just this consideration of financial aid. Like a lot of people feel very discouraged to apply to universities because of that, because of the gap. There's this entire thing, like there's this lack of information about scholarships, there's lack of information about financial aid and stuff like that. So what was your attitude going in? And I feel like people also make all this like people don't make very intelligent decisions when they kind of choose a university, because you can get very carried away, right? Like when, especially with regards to like financial aid. So like how do you choose your universities? Like when did you feel like you wanted to reach for this university? When did you feel like something was unrealistic? Like what were your thoughts on that?
Right. Um, so I'm going to tell you how I picked Dartmouth. So
Yeah.
the first time that I applied, I got an interview with Dartmouth.
Okay.
So I thought, like there was a chance that I was a good fit at Dartmouth, which was why
Yeah.
I applied to Dartmouth the second time as well.
Yeah.
But so the second time, okay, I'm just going to go back to the first time again. So the first
Yeah.
time I
Yeah.
applied
Yeah.
to a bunch of Ivies. In
Yeah.
fact, most schools that I applied to had an acceptance rate between 7 and 15%. Um, and the second time, I was like, okay, look, I already took a gap year. I can't really afford to take more time off. So I'm gonna be very realistic about my options. I'm gonna look
Yeah.
at schools that are very generous with financial aid. Typically, the big schools, if you get in, you get all of your need covered.
Yeah.
But then there are also other schools that have generous scholarships and stuff like that. Um, so the second time that I applied, I probably applied to like four, three IVs, maybe
Yep.
two other good schools,
Yeah.
and the rest were just like schools that I thought I had a realistic chance of getting in, and that I
Okay.
could get um, sizable funding from. And also, I was going in with the confidence that like those schools may not have the same reputation,
Mm.
but I believe that I could still do well. So the environment would really matter to me. I
Yeah.
had the confidence I would be able to
You,
do well.
you kind of needed the
So
opportunity, basically.
yeah,
Like, yeah.
so that was the mindset that I went with. But fortunately for me, I guess like I got done. So yeah,
Yeah, I just want to make a point on like the whole like IV application and the majority IV application thing. Like, I feel like it's important to reiterate that IVs and other like IV plus schools are a stretch, are reach schools for anyone, right? For absolutely
yeah,
anyone, right?
yeah,
No matter how good your academics, your extracurriculars are, your test scores are,
exactly. Yeah,
there is a very high probability you will be rejected, like extremely
yeah,
high. It's going to be higher than 50%, no matter who you are. So
yeah.
and
Also,
go ahead.
yeah. Sorry
Yeah.
about that. Okay, so also like building on that again, I'm just gonna like talk about like the mindset of a Sri Lankan high school student. I think we live in this bubble. So like high achievers in this bubble do pretty well, but I feel like they don't really understand how the university cycle works. So we
Yeah.
tend to apply to just reach schools.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Creates a problem because that's
Yeah.
what happened with me in my
Yeah.
first year. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Like you need to realize like where your priorities. Do you want to spend all your time and resources getting into a school where you might not be like you'll be essentially a big fish in a small pond, or
yeah,
sorry, you'll be a small fish in a big pond,
yeah,
versus somewhere where you can actually like make use of the resources and thrive and things like that, and
right,
like have like
exactly,
a sustainable financial situation and things like that. I
right,
think those are very important things, and I'm
For
glad
sure.
that you brought this to light. But yeah, I guess like
And
moving on to like maybe like your like second application cycle, right? Like what changed? Like what were the main like key differences? I know you talked about like you're applying to different schools, but what like actually in your applications, what were the things that changed that you think
right.
gave you a better shot?
Mm. So I think the first time I did practice a lot for my SAT, but I just didn't understand the exam pretty well because I hadn't like taken it. So the second time I took it, I actually started. So the first time I took it, I studied for probably like 2 to 3 months. The second time I took it, I studied for a week,
yeah.
but I knew the format of the exam.
100%.
I knew how it worked, so my time management was better, and I scored much better on the second time. The second thing is my personal statement. I think the first time I did my personal statement, so it was about it was me describing certain things in my room,
Oh
and
yeah.
in hindsight, that that was pretty shit because it didn't
Yeah.
really like convey my personality. There was nothing unique about. It was just like random objects in my room and why they were important to me. But I felt
Yeah.
like it really didn't convey my personality that well. The second time, I st- I spoke about something that was very personal to me. So as a
Yeah.
kid, I used to play cricket,
Yeah.
and I got bullied to a certain extent, and I don't know. There was like this like lack of self esteem. So I
Mhm.
developed this stutter, and
Oh. Oh yeah. Yeah. I
it was
remember
a
this.
problem for a really long time until I did public speaking. So my personal statement was that story. and I felt like that was much more powerful than describing random objects. If you do. So I
Yeah.
think that was pretty important. Yeah. So in general, I think I spent a lot of time on essays.
Yeah.
Um, because everything else, like the extracurriculars that I did, they were pretty much the same. I at the time I applied the second time, I did have an internship,
Yeah.
but everything was pretty much the same. So I think it's very important um, to learn to like convey yourself through the common application when you're applying to universities in the US. It's not necessarily the same with universities in the UK though, because
Yeah.
those personal statements are more about like justifying, why you have a passion in a certain field of study.
Academic field. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think something that a lot of people don't take like seriously enough is just that like I think essays are just like that one very major thing that kind of like sets people apart, right? And I think that people take it like way too simply. Like I read like some of these essays and it's like like a lot of people like see because the crowd in Sri Lanka, right? They apply like they a lot of MUNers kind of apply to all these like schools, right? And like I feel like people really attach like MUN and like social political issues to their like personality, and they kind of like they just talk about like that issue. Like let's say like the word is like the essay count, the word count is like 700 words. They speak go on for like 400 words about like the actual issue. And I think people forget like how many applications go through and like how common that could look where if like that and how easily that could be filtered out, right? So yeah.
Yeah, just like an interesting like side note. So my school lets you like once you get in, they let you look at your application with the annotations from like the people who reviewed it. Right?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I
It's
heard
a
of
really
this. Yeah.
interesting experience because you see like what a person who like accepted you thought of your like essay, right? And like
Yeah.
mine was oh yeah, I've looked at it. I've looked at it. It was a terrifying experience because first thing I got so you sign like this document release thing and you get this thing back, right? And it's like a hand annotated. It's like an actual copy, right? Uh, Mine had red marks all over the paper. Like literally, like the paper was 80% red, like 5% like back from the text, and the rest was just the paper itself, right? And, and it's just like I misattributed a quote to Albert Einstein. Turns out it was some random person on the internet's quote, right? It was like a bunch of things like that, right? But like in the end, like the person who read my application actually like thought that I like had conveyed a decent sense of self, like a decent sense of who I am and what my motivations are, right? Which is like at the end of the day what you want to do. You don't want to like I don't know make MUN your personality and talk about like how you
Yeah.
won best delegate award at some
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
conference,
Some
right?
random conference in Sri Lanka, right? Yeah,
It,
yeah,
it doesn't matter. Like that's not who you are, and people need to realize that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's something
Exactly.
we see. Yeah, but so you took a gap year, right? Once you and then like what did you do during the gap year? Like generally, not doesn't necessarily have to be academic or anything.
Mhm.
That's when
Um,
we met.
yeah, that's pretty much when we met. So I at the time I had an internship with Advocata Institute. I was like a research assistant sort of thing. I did that for like 5 months, but at the same time, I was also part of the Colombo Operated Model UN Expo. That was probably the highlight of my
Okay, okay.
gap year because I met a lot of fun people. I still talk to
Yeah,
them. Um, and I also after I had applied to university, I had a lot of free time on my hands, and I am like into fitness, so I
I can see
spend
that.
most of that, I spend most of that
Anka
time
Ram. Yeah,
at the gym as well. But yeah,
yeah,
there was those were the three main things that I did.
yeah.
But yeah,
Like,
that's interesting. Isuru, do you want to talk a little bit about your major? Because how you're doing the whole QSS plus CS? Because I think that's an interesting topic.
Um, okay, so CS at Dartmouth in general, I feel like is very focused on academics. So we have like a lot of theory, and the I in in my personal experience, I feel like a lot of like the practical stuff comes from data science, and I'll explain why. So currently, from my CS major, I learned things like data structures, algorithms, discrete maths, so like calculating overtime, all that stuff. Um, and then you go into like cybersecurity, database systems. What I'm saying right now are the classes that I have taken or I'm considering taking at some point. Um, and you also have things like machine learning, AI. But the problem is that a subject like machine learning requires a certain degree of math and with like Bayesian probability and stuff like that. So that element comes from QSS because QSS is so there is no department called QSS at Dartmouth.
Mhm.
It's like an interdepartmental thing. So it's like a fruit salad, if you will, of like
Okay.
different departments offering different classes. But like it creates this like really unique combination. So from the CS department, you have machine learning and AI. Then from the cognitive science department, you have classes like um, introduction to cognitive science, and then have like other advanced classes. I haven't really taken them, so I don't know much about it. But there are other advanced classes. Um, and then obviously you have the math department with things like there's literally a class called probability. So we have that discrete probability. Then you have a separate graph theory class by the math department. So like it's this really unique, cool mix. And the reason why I am modifying the both of why I'm modifying my major is because I want both elements of CS theory with like practical applications,
Yeah.
and my passion or my interest is towards data science, so QSS offers the practical experience that I need. So that's why I'm doing CS modified with QSS.
But we have one last question that we ask every guest.
Okay.
Bear with me here. If you could lick the foot of
Okay.
anybody in the world, dead or alive, fictional or non-fictional, I don't know if that's a word, and gain their
Mhm.
power, who would it be?
And gain power. Okay. I mean, because you said power, I'd have to go with like any US president, but like if you just meant like licking someone's foot just because you can.
Yeah, what's up? I want to hear this.
That's the case, then I totally dig Cillian Murphy's legs, dude. Like entire fucking legs, both legs, dude. I
I
would
said, I
totally.
said, I said, feet. I said feet. You don't need to go that far. Okay, that is definitely not going in the final cut. But anyway, maybe let's conclude this podcast and then take the rest of this offline. All right. Anyway, that has been a very eventful and laughter-filled, unfortunately, episode 3 of Making the Right Play. If you made it this far, congratulations on avoiding and not like I don't know dying from laughter because Isuru is funny apparently. But if you made it this far, thank you for watching. And then we've got a few more interesting guests coming up. I'm not exactly sure who we have up next, but they're bound to be interesting, and you should tune in for the next episode of Making the Right Play. See ya.
Right. Thank you.
Oh, and
Thank you,
thank
Sue.
you to Isuru for coming on. I forgot about that. And
Yeah, of
for
course.
coming on, and he's been a
No
great,
worries.
great guest. But yeah,
No worries.
see everybody later.
Dude,
That is it.
no,